Okay, our third speaker today has had epilepsy since he was 5 years old. In 2003, he had successful surgery. Since then, as he himself wrote in the Brainwave magazine recently, I feel I've climbed the highest mountain and now I have no place else to climb. All that's left is to reach for the highest star. He works in the nursing department at the Athlone Institute of Technology. He's a member of the local Toastmasters and the Musical Society as well. Please put your hands together for Francis Keenan.
Thanks, Rick, for those kind words, if I can see where you are. I'm sure that everyone here today at some time in their life has taken on a project and failed. But imagine if you were the person whose life and journey inspired me to believe that, to believe that anything was possible during my suffering. His father and mother were of a melancholy nature and prone to depression, as he himself was. One side of his family was thick with mental disease. His only brother died in infancy, and 10 years later his sister died, giving birth to a stillborn infant. At the age of 9, his mother died. At the age of 21, he failed in business. At the age of 24, he failed in business again. At the age of 26, his sweetheart died. Later, he had a nervous breakdown. Lost a legislative race. Lost a senatorial race. Lost a congressional race. Failed in his effort to become vice president. At the age of 49, he lost a senatorial race for the second time. And at the age of 52, he became the President of America. He was a person who had been prone to depression, who had lost much, including 8 elections, who had failed in business many times, and who had a nervous breakdown. He could have quit many times, but he didn't. Instead, after each defeat, he would pick himself back up, press forward, until he achieved his aspirations. His name was Abraham Lincoln. In 1993, I stopped my car as I felt a secondary generalized tonic-clonic seizure coming on me. 1 hour later, I regained consciousness in a house about 1 kilometer from my car. My hands were torn by briars, my jeans were all wet, and one of the knees of the jeans was torn. I did not know where I left my keys, but I did know that I might never drive again. But I didn't just lose my keys on that day. I lost my freedom. I lost my independence. And I lost my car. And it would be 15 years before I would drive again. While I have had epilepsy since I was 5 and was first hospitalised at the age of 10 in Cherry Orchard Hospital here in Dublin, my seizures were not very frequent until this event. My whole outlook had been changed when a local doctor used extreme measures to alter my diet and later took me straight off phenobarbital in a 2-week period. I could say that my experience while coming off phenobarbital, the loss of the car, a fractured skull, and the 8 years of torment that followed, either suppressed or in action, was the worst experience of my life. And at the time, that would have been true. But today I look back and I say it was one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had, as it gave me an insight into what suffering really is, and the turbulence and destruction that comes with it. I could easily hate and blame the doctor for what he'd done to me back then, But would that make me feel better? No. I thank God for bringing this man into my life, for I would never know the unbreakable unity with God through faith had this man not existed. I would never know what it would be like to stand here in front of you and say that I do not have epilepsy. I would never have met people like consultant neurologist Dr. Norman Delante, consultant neurologist Dr. Kevin Murphy, and my neurosurgeon, Professor Jack Phillips, had this man never existed. For the next 2 years, I would go through periods of deep emptiness and extreme lows, which generally lasted from 2 to 3 days. My consultant neurologist at that time noted that these periods sounded more psychotic than epileptic. In 1995, I began to suppress that relentless fear and the periods of deep depression by becoming a compulsive achiever. At second level education, I had been more accustomed to marks in the 30s, 40s and 50s, had given up French, Latin and Irish at junior cert level. But in college, I became far more accustomed to marks in the 70s, 80s and 90s. Wasn't able to get less because the force that was driving me forward was fear disguised as ambition. In third year, I received an award which recognized a student who contributed to and enhanced the student atmosphere for both his fellow students and the college community. My health had begun to decline during my diploma year and continued to decline into 2001. And April and May of that year was perhaps one of the worst years of my life, when I got 60 seizures in a 6-week period, which led to a panic attack. And afterwards, I chose to get counselling in June. In July, at the height of the Celtic Tiger, I stood with a false payslip for €67.42 in my hand. Out of that, I had to pay €9 interest on a loan of €4,600 which I'd got in college. I was suffering from depression, had brain damage, and was still getting seizures regularly. I was lucky to have a doctor who would not charge me and a counsellor who would just charge €10 a session. Yet, this was also the year that I met 2 organisations and a consultant neurologist that was to support me during and before and after brain surgery. I met National Learning Network, who were under the umbrella of rehab, and they at that time did try to get work for me but were unsuccessful. It was 11 years ago on this month that I first met Brainwave. I met consultant neurologist Dr. Norman Delante at a Brainwave conference in Sligo. Thankfully, I did get to talk with consultant neurologist that day, Dr. Delante, and within a month, I had an appointment with both him and consultant neurologist Kevin Murphy in Beaumont Hospital. Before that Christmas, I'd had an MRI scan, a number of psychological assessments, and a psychiatrist's review. Later, I was to have a permanent EEG. During 2 of those days, I had 13 epilepsy seizures. And about 3 weeks before brain surgery, I had a water test. At the same conference, I had met Brainwave. It was actually Paul Sharkey that I spoke to that day. And he told me about, bear with me now, about Brainwave's Training to Success program. He continued to keep in contact with me, and that kind of support was very important to me in these difficult circumstances. I had surgery on the 4th of September 2003, and 11 weeks after brain surgery, I went back to the same college that I got a diploma in manufacturing engineering and worked in the nursing department Here, National Learning Network worked in union with the Athlone AIT and allowed me to develop slowly academically while preparing me for the job of a receptionist administrator. For the first 2 months, I was doing simple tasks like binding documents, photocopying, a little filing, putting letters into envelopes, doing the post. Soon I began to familiarize myself again with a computer, and by June of 2003 I could use a computer for long periods. I began to do various exams which were funded by the National Learning Network and got distinctions in word processing level 1 and level 2 and passed all the 7 modules in the ECDL. As I've developed in the nursing department, I found that although I'm reacting slower to each situation, I have become more effective because now I am more balanced, organised, and have a greater awareness of my capabilities and area of work. While I don't take in knowledge as quickly as I once did, my retention and ability to make knowledge work is far superior since brain surgery. I've been able to broaden my way of thinking, and this has helped me to be more adaptable in various situations, giving me a greater ability to adjust and readjust in difficult circumstances in the workplace. Today, I'm involved in both Toastmasters and the Choral Society, where I was in France with recently. It was 6 months after brain surgery that I joined Toastmasters, where I found a deep unity and warmth that bred a confidence into me. I found new friendships, laughter, support and encouragement, and I would encourage anyone here to go to Toastmasters. It will be one of the greatest decisions you will ever make if you do not have confidence. It's one of the most warmest places. There is no doubt about that. My greatest achievement, however, is that I'm back driving. 4 years ago, I done the provisional license test and got 39 marks out of 40 and was a little disappointed. I mean, how many times do you get near the perfect mark and fail? However, a few months later, I done the driving test and now I was disappointed. 21 faults is what I got. But within a month, I bought a car, and with the National Learning Network and FOSS working in union with each other, the Lions Club sponsored 10 driving lessons for me. In December, I passed the driving test. I've learned from my experiences that when we fail, people will watch to see how we act. Oftentimes, we will be judged by what we make of our mistakes, rather than the mistake itself. Some of us will make such terrible mistakes that people will be convinced we are no good. But if we can respond correctly to our mistakes, the people who are watching will usually change their minds. While I would never want to go through the suffering that I've gone through, I do need to appreciate that it has changed me from a rigid, driven, restless, knowledge-based, proud and self-centered person into an easygoing, intelligent, creative, caring and happy person with a divine confidence born out of faith, not just in God but also in those that He gave to me, my neurosurgeon and neuropsychologist and their teams, and the fact that they had such belief in me. They would never have gone through preparing me for surgery if they did not have the confidence to believe that I had the capability to recover. And I'm very, very lucky that they pursued that. And divine confidence was everything to me. It gave me that extra edge and ability to see things that I'd never seen before, and the resilience to make them real. It also gave me the strength to remove stagnation's grip on me, for stagnation could have no place on my new journey. A journey that began on that bright September day in 2001, when I met both consultant neurologist and Brainwave. Both have kept in contact with me and encouraged me on my way. Also, the National Learning Network, who have guided me both before and after brain surgery. And indeed, most of all, the Athlone IT, where I work today and have worked for in the last 8 years, who have shown an incredible support for me. Both management, my co-workers and the head of the department. I feel I've climbed the highest mountain and have no place else to climb. While I don't expect to reach the heights of Abraham Lincoln, I do expect to achieve a lot more myself by remaining in transition. Today, I'm preparing to do a course in French, the very same subject I gave up at junior cert level. I'm currently editing a book on my experiences of epilepsy, depression, happiness, success, my faith, fear, and various other things. The book is in many ways done and I'm sitting on it, just hoping that someone will come along and publish it. You know, I nearly didn't make it here today, driving from Athlone. 3 miles out the road I got stopped by a guard. And when I let down the window, the guard just said to me, "You realise that you've been doing 92 kilometres in an 80 kilometre zone?" I said, "No, I didn't realise that, guard." And he was just writing out a ticket and looked in. And he said, "I've been waiting a long time to catch you." And I said the first thing that came into my head, and that was, well, I got here as fast as I could. So I suppose my journey here has been a long one. It started 11 years ago at a Brainwave conference in Sligo. And I have been very fortunate that groups like Brainwave, the National Learning Network, and the AIT have come into my life. I have been very lucky to have brought people like my brother, who is a psychiatric nurse and who has a master's in pastoral theology and who is here today, into my life. It has brought me much closer to my family. But I suppose the 3 people that have had the biggest influence on me during my healing has been consultant neurologist Dr. Delante, consultant neurologist Dr. Kevin Murphy, and my neurosurgeon, Professor Jack Phillips. 11 years. Not too long when you're looking back, but it's an awful long time when you're looking forward. So 11 years I started my journey in Sligo, and I got here to Dublin 11 years later. But I got here as fast as I could. Thank you.